Healthcare is becoming increasingly digital. Protecting patient data is no longer just a technical concern, it's a matter of trust. So let's explore why cybersecurity is a pillar of patient trust. And joining with us today to explore this is Jalil Rahman, Director of IT at Prime Health, and Osama El Samadoni, the GM of GBM Dubai. Thank you for joining with us today, Jalil and Osama. How are you doing today?
Great. Thank you for doing fine. Thank you very much.
Great. So, first question I'll ask you, Jalil. Cybersecurity is often viewed as a back office IT function, but at Prime Hospital, how do you view its role in patient experience and trust?
In Prime Healthcare, when we talk about cybersecurity, I don't think it's at the back end for the IT. Our vision has been always getting the respect of the patients. When you talk about the respect, it's not just the clinical outcomes. We do have patient data residing with us. So it's around the trust that this data is safe. How do we take care of the data? And how the data is being used as well. This is in today's world, it's not in silos anymore. It's actually used by multiple systems. So we need to ensure that there's a trust by the patients that the data is always secure. It's not going out of control, or it's not even accessed by those who need not to see the data. So not just within outside the organization, but within the organization as well, because we make sure that only who needs to see the data sees it.
Okay, so it's quite clear from his answer that cybersecurity is like a foundation. And in your view, Osama, why is cybersecurity now considered as a foundation of trust, especially in modern healthcare?
Basically, when I thought about it, and thank you for the question, there is an implicit agreement between the patient and the healthcare provider. The implicit agreement is, I can come, I'll find the doctor or the medical care providers. I will trust him because I will trust whatever he's going to do to me, to my body, and whatever medication they give or whatever consultations output it's going to be given. So the trust is a base, a foundation of the implicit agreement between the patient and the healthcare provider. And by the way, security and the data of the patient is not exclusion of that agreement. It's actually in the body of that agreement. So if I can provide the customer, or actually in that case, the patient, with proofs that there is measures that is taken and will be taken and always will be taken to protect the privacy of the patient, the privacy of the data, the use of the data, and actually acquiring consent from the patient on the use of that data, administrative-wise, and I have the technology solutions that can stand to fulfill the promise a healthcare provider is giving to the patient with regard to the data. It's all amplifying and force multiply to build the trust that is already built from the village doctor who was treating patients in the village, one-on-one.
Yeah. So in healthcare, like when you go to hospital, you give your Emirates ID, you give your insurance details and your entire medical history, everything. So it comes with a lot of challenges, especially with data. So at Prime Hospital, when you were including the cybersecurity details, what were your biggest security challenges?
As I said, and I think you said right as well, and we do have a consent when we say that, this is how we want to use the data, your data is going to be secure, we need to live up to it. Yeah. So the challenge is, how do you ensure, especially in today's world when we do a lot of digital transformation, how do you ensure this data remains where it needs to be and is only seen by the right applications or by the right users, right? So how do you ensure the privacy of the data, at the same time ensure sharing at the right level, the one who really need to see, right? Not necessarily accessible to all, but only to those who need to see it. So that's really how you control the data. That it's all about the data privacy. And today's world, you have, as I said, you have the telehealth coming in. You have, almost every modality in our healthcare is now connected. The MRI is connected, so it's a single set of data. And at Prime, we've been always working that way. We have a single application with a single patient record. Right? So every data is, continuous for us in terms of the patient history. So how do you make sure that the data is monitored, continuously? There's a backend activity happening, and that's why we have really partnered with GBM to actually make sure the data has been monitored, the use of data has been monitored, and the trends have been monitored, and any suspicions that we see is actually looked at immediately.
So with your partnership, it was said that tailored MDR and threat intelligence was done. How did you tailor it to meet the specific challenges of Prime?
Actually, I would like to thank Jalil and his team because they spare no efforts in making us understand the detailed challenges that they're going through, how their record systems are being created, what are the shareable, non-shareable part of the data, and how the data value matrix is in terms of sensitivity or in terms of confidentiality and so on and so forth. And that helped us a lot. And when we are doing it in a managed services, so it's not just only throwing a technology stack at the data and hoping that the technology stack will do everything. It is a managed services, and managed services is a little bit different than building a technology stack, because we build the technology stack for everybody. Okay, and then we provide access to that technology stack through managed services. That means the technology stack needs to be always updated. The good thing about it is, I'm not asking Jalil or his team or Prime Health to go and refresh the data, refresh the threat models, refresh other things. It's a managed detection and response, meaningly that we have probes into the data that identified by Prime Health. After a lot of investigation from our side, what is the best way to manage it? Then we agreed on what are the typical threat models that can impact this data and what would be the profile of the persona of the person coming in, of course backed up by technology of the SIM, and as well as by the SOAR, to make sure that we are compliant to the security practice at Prime Health. We're covering one part, but the other part is actually covered by Prime Health, and we need to be in harmony in doing that. Having this, plus having people who are experts on the back end of the managed security services, that adds up the intelligence part from a human perspective, and daily, hourly, every second monitoring of the threat models and threat trends that are coming in the world is always happening. Let me add something here. And in security business, we are actually, I'll not say we are the weaker part, but we have to be on the quicker part, because it's always a response. Hackers are going to go and try to penetrate your systems, and as well as any other system, every day, and they are very innovative and becoming very innovative. With quantum computing, they are becoming even more powerful. All what we need to be is to notice it as early as possible and be able to respond to it as comprehensive as possible.
So once
we cannot be ahead, but we have to be fast to make sure that we can contain the ever increasing trends of threats happening on every day. And that's exactly what GBIM is doing under the Managed Security Services, Managed Detection and Response.
Speaking from a personal experience, it was quite difficult for me, definitely not speaking about Prime, but in a different place when they changed the entire system. Everything is secure, but it was hindering the patient care. So how do you ensure that cybersecurity efforts are patient-centric and don't hinder with the care of the patients?
I think this is a common thing which happens if we don't put things into balance ways. The most secure is lock up everything and make it read it,
Yes.
right? So have it all. But when you want to do transformations and then you want to do a repeat, experience, then definitely you open up the system, and there are different things that open up. Yeah, as you said, the landscape is much bigger. So how do you make sure, and how do you make sure that you maintain that balance between a user experience? So if here it's not just the user experience, there is a patient experience and the patient journey. There's a user experience from a doctor's perspective. So we need to make sure that we don't enter that. Okay, whether we need trainings before we actually go to, that implementing is one thing, but at the same time, we also make sure most of the hard work is done at the back end. And that's why we had this partnership, right? So we, like you rightly said, we have the knowledge of the data and what the data is. They have the knowledge of the technology, and we work very much in that harmony to ensure that all the hard work is done at the back end, and we make the front end as smooth as possible, so that patients don't feel that there is something hindering their journey, or the doctors don't have that experience, or something is stopping from my work, or stopping me from doing what I need to be doing, right? Of course, there are controls and there are other mechanisms that we need to let them know beforehand and the trainings that needs to happen, but we ensure that there's a balance maintained. So I think that's quite critical, that you don't push everything to the forefront, but there's a lot of back-end
It's a fine
activity that's
line.
done. It's a fine line. Yes.
Yeah. Perfect. So, Osama, with this harmonious partnership, what were the lessons that you have learned from Prime that you think would be beneficial while you are working with other healthcare as well?
Actually, we at GBM are proud of that partnership that we have with Prime, because very few customers are dealing with cybersecurity not as an afterthought. And we did the system, everything is done, and then, oh, security, what needs to do about it? The maturity, the position that Prime Health is putting itself in terms of identifying their current posture of security, we found it actually in having a much more advanced than a typical customer we go to. So one, it is this. The other one, which is actually I've been taught by the guys we have been told by the guys in Prime Health is it's a journey, it is not a one-off. That's why our proposition to do the security as a managed services was resonating very well with Prime Health, because they're saying, okay, I'm evolving, I'm increasing the systems, I'm increasing the touch points, I'm increasing the openness of the organization. So I'm inviting threats. Actually, on the back end of it, you are inviting threats. And I need something that is evolving with me ever since I'm increasing or expanding or increasing the touch points that the systems in Prime Health are touching the patient community with. And I believe this came as a nice learning out of it. The other learning is keeping ourselves on the toes all the time. The matter of discussions, especially on healthcare, we have new few challenges that in a typical commercial business or enterprise business, they are not into it. And we felt that we need to go and do few things more on top of the platform we have for the managed services in order to serve Prime Health better.
Okay, so going into our last question, it's for the both of you. If you had to describe the future of healthcare in cybersecurity in one word, what would that be? Okay, I can be lenient and give you one sentence, but yes, what would that be?
I think going back to the word of trust, right? So if you say one word, for me, it's trust.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say trust, it's the trust that, it's not just about the data, it's including the use of data, because today there's AI, there are a lot of other things as well, right? It's not just the data going into the wrong hands, but also how the data is being used, right? So that's one word. But I think if you were saying one sentence, it's around how do you automate your processes and give that better experience to the patient, ensuring that the data is safe.
Perfect. And Osama?
If I pick one word, it would be resiliency. Actually, I was trying to pick the word first. But even yeah. So resiliency is the second one. Is basically there is a big difference. Not the big difference, but we all spoke cybersecurity. But if you talk about cyber resilient, you are opening up a new dimension, with the dimension of how I get back to a status that I was in and deal with the problems later. Because right now, with Prime Health and any other organization going with a digital first strategy, they need to be 24/7, they need to be trustworthy, they need to avail the services on a click of a button. So it's becoming very demanding. It's not only the stock exchange that is required 24/7. Guess what? Everybody is. Especially if I'm giving you an access to my application using a mobile app, you can call the application anytime you want. So, and this is where resiliency comes as a big aspect. And the resiliency is coming back again to what Jalil had been explaining all the time. It's all about data. How I can take the data and put it in actually secluded, air-gapped vault, data and systems, so I can recover back regardless of how severe the impact was on the cyber attack.
Makes sense. Thank you so much. And it was a really good time talking to you. And I hope to see you again soon.
Sure.
Thank you for
Thank you
joining
very
us.
much. Thank you.